It is not that we're first. Hello, everyone. My name is Jarvis Hall. Welcome to our BIPOC Connex Tuesday talk. We're excited for all of you being here, including our esteemed president, who is also here, Dr. Dwayne Plaza. Thank you for allowing us the platform to have Tuesday talks and for allowing us to be able to have this platform. We very much appreciate it. We have a fantastic speaker today uh, with a fantastic topic, and of course, we have to give our speaker even extra points for having Baby Groot in the background. Uh, an iconic scene uh, from Guardians 2. So it's a fantastic scene. And as myself, I'm a big Marvel fan. You can't see it with my background here, but I have a Miles Morales Spider-Man painting right behind me on my wall. So thank you for being here. I'll actually kick it over to Patricia to introduce you if you have uh, anything you like to say, Patricia?
I won't keep people waiting too much. Thank you so much, Karen, for speaking on this very hot topic issue. I know we've been communicating privately of like, okay, how do we deal with this or how do we incorporate it? And I can see we have a bit of interest. Some people have attended to hear your thoughts. So feel free to introduce yourself and then we'll go straight into your presentation. I'm looking forward to hearing it out.
Thanks, Patricia. I've known Patty for almost 10 years now, I think. So thank you for the invitation. Um, I'm just going to jump right into it because all of it's kind of in there. So let me do. This is the one I want, I think. Yes. Let me just move Patty out of the way. Okay. So today is all about how do we deal with AI, specifically in the classroom? We know it's everywhere. Um, our students are using it, we're using it. It's been in date, it's everywhere you look. So the goal is by the end of this whole presentation that you'll be able to develop an inclusive and student-centered AI syllabus policy, generate ideas on integrating AI into your classes, and discuss the impact of racial stereotypes and biases that are ingrained in AI. One thing that we have to remember with AI is that it is only as smart as the people who put the information out there. So a little bit about me. I'm a mom and a wife. These are my two kids, and they would both love your Miles Spider-Man painting. I've worked in higher education since 2005. My full-time job is at Cal State Northridge, where I am an administrative support coordinator for a department. I've started at the dean's office level, and then I've worked in multiple departments. I've been teaching, or I started teaching as a grad student back in 2009. I have my master's in sociology, and I'm an adjunct professor at multiple community colleges and have been since 2016. In fact, my very first class was fall 2016 at a high school with high school students during the 2016 election. Well, that was quite a wake-up call on multiple levels. Um, and I'm a peer online course reviewer through CVC OEI. I'm also the ASCCC Sociology Discipline Lead. And for something else to do, I decided to go back to grad school and get a master's in instructional science and technology. And through that program, one of the courses that I took this past summer was all about, it was an introduction to AI and how do we use it? And more so, how do we use AI so that it becomes a tool instead of the way that it's actually been used right now, especially for a lot of our students as a crutch, where they take the prompt, they pop it into Chat GPT, it gives them the answer, they copy paste it, oftentimes not even reading the response, and they submit it as their assignment. So how do we shift it and make it so that we're teaching our students how to use AI ethically and responsibly as a tool, just like we use books as a tool every single day, although today they're more online. In the real world, students are expected to like I mentioned before, AI is everywhere. And these are some examples, right? We have autocorrect on our phones. All of our personal computers come with some kind of AI. Your phone comes with Siri or Gemini. My PC comes with Microsoft Copilot. We have, what is that thing called? Echo Dot with Amazon. So AI is everywhere we can think of. It recommends products for you to watch, things to read. It's looking at your behaviors and saying, hey, you like this. How about this? Our employers are expecting their employees to know how to use AI in the workforce, and that's becoming a marketable skills for students today and for us looking for new jobs. The more you know, the stronger you are. We have people who are using AI to write cover letters, write resumes. In a one way, it kind of takes away from the ability to critically think and develop these cover letters on your own. But at the same time, if you use it correctly, then it can provide you with a platform on just something to build upon. As instructors, we have a strong responsibility to create a safe space for our students to learn about AI ethics, and we need to show them how to use it as a tool instead of a crutch. There's a great Padlet where you can see other universities' AI policies across the United States. And I'm going to put the Padlet in the chat for you. It won't let me copy paste. Hold on just one moment. And what I like about this Padlet, well, there's a couple of things. Take a look at the policies that are written out here that we can just see as of right now. What is the thing? What do you notice about these 4 policies? What's the first thing that stands out at you?
I'd say it's written like in a negative manner regarding the use of AI. At least the two I was able to read quickly right now.
Yeah, it's not very inviting. And I want you to compare the language from Boston University, where it starts off with, we welcome AI language generation tools, and compare that to, say, UC Berkeley, where it says, similarly, ChatGPT should not be used to generate output. University of Maryland, you will not use any artificial intelligence. Ohio State, unauthorized assistance in lab work. So everything is very punitive in the way that a lot of these policies are being written. So it tells students that in one way that AI is bad. And if I use it, then no one should know about it. It's a big, big secret. Well, what if we shift it instead? And I want you to think about the way that your policy is written. Most policies, syllabus policies, university policies that are being developed are very punitive. They're not inclusive or encouraging or supportive. And this is my previous policy. It says, and in caps, do not use any type of AI generator to complete your assignments. It's glaringly obvious when they're used. You will earn an automatic 0 on the assignment and get turned into the dean of students. Trust me when I say you are smarter than the AI, and I want to hear your opinion and perspective, not an AI generated one. So while my last 2 sentences are supportive in reminding my students that they're smart, that's lost because the first part of it is don't, and this is what's going to happen if you do bad, bad, bad. It's like they're a bad puppy. So look at your syllabus. Is your syllabus inviting? Is it punitive? And how can we generate a more inviting policy that creates the space for students to learn how to use AI ethically within the confines of your discipline, and then give them all the tools necessary for future employment? I heard about Pepperdine's policy generator, which is actually really cool. And this is their, I'm going to put that in the chat also, and I'm going to pull it up for you. Where is it? So in the course that I took over the summertime about develop AI itself, one of the things that we did was we went to Pepperdine's. I had to use their AI policy to generate something new. And their policy generator is a good start. And I want to emphasize it's a good start. So when you can see this screen, right? The policy generator. Yeah.
Yes, we
Okay.
can see it.
So click on Start Building Your Policy. I didn't pay attention to any of that because I was bored. It tells you, okay, so that's the initial part is, do you like that as the introduction? Great. If you want to use that as the introduction, you continue. And then it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. How do you want it to be? So you go through the whole thing, and I'm going to show you part of what my version came up with. It was actually, I refined it a lot. I took their AI generator policy and I moved it into Goblin Tools. If you don't know about Goblin Tools is amazing. It's also a lot of fun to play with. One thing that it does is, this is actually what I had done with one of my assignments. This was for my program, where I took the assignment and I popped it into Goblin Tools under the Magic To Do. And I said I wanted it really, really detailed in terms of how to break it down for me. And it broke it down into this incredibly long to-do list of how to do this one discussion post. Does it still have my formalizer in here? No, it doesn't. What I had also done was, if you take this assignment and you pop it into the formalizer, and then you want to convert it to, I had fun doing it as snarky or more sarcastic, and you convert it, it will rewrite the whole thing into being more sarcastic, or however you want it to do. Similar to how students would use Grammarly tools to make something more professional. I took the AI generator that Pepperdine had spit out for me, and then I popped it into the formalizer and I had it do it so it was more less formal, because my style of writing in my syllabus is really less formal. And then from there, I changed it a little bit more to this. So this is my current syllabus policy, and I know it's a little bit small. So it says more and more employers expect their employees to use AI properly. There are a lot of cool generative AI tools available to help us with the research process. This was specifically for my research methods class this summer. Gone are the days that we need to know the exact right keywords to find the right articles in a research database. With generative AI tools like Elicit, we can simply use our research question and get help finding articles that support the research process. Just a heads up, you will use generative AI for some of our assignments. If you do, make sure you give credit to the tool you used and explain how you used it. These are some acceptable ways to use AI in our class. The list is not exhaustive, as we will create our own Pirates code to use AI in our class. You can use AI to streamline your brainstorming, generate ideas, evaluate your written work to check for grammar, tone, clarity, format, etc. Generate research articles for your research proposal, fine-tune your research question, summarize your notes, help you break down your assignment into manageable to-do lists. Now, it's important to remember that these AI tools are not always spot on with their content, since they gather data from limited and sometimes outdated sources. There's also the risk of accidentally plagiarizing, violating copyright, or making up data. And hey, these tools are meant to mimic human content creation, not necessarily super accurate. So it's on you to make sure your work is top notch. These are some unacceptable ways to use AI in our class. Copy pasting any exam question and asking AI for the answer, copy pasting any assignment prompt, asking AI to generate a response, and then passing it off as your own work, asking AI to ghostwrite any assignment for you. Using using generative AI in a way that we did not agree to violates the academic integrity policy and will result in earning a 0 on the assignment and possibly getting turned into the dean of students. So let's all strive to be honest and to do our best work. What's different about this policy compared to my previous policy, aside that it's lengthier? As a student, which one is more inviting? Which one tells you more information about what is accepted and not accepted?
I think the one that you reformatted kind of reminds you of like when a parent says, don't do that, and you ask why, and they say, just because I said so. And the other
hmm
one is more so giving you background information.
So while our kids, I mean, our students are not children because they're full adults like you and I are, they still need the same information. It's going based off of an androcentric um, learning theory, where as adults, they need to know why this is important. What are they doing? What is the purpose of it? So I decided over the summer to try something new, and I wanted to see what my students' response was going to be to creating a pirate's code. And these are screenshots from my Canvas page directly and from the quiz, because I put it in as a quiz for them. I asked my students as a class, we were going to develop the Pirates Code for AI because I wanted to know what were their thoughts in terms of what is acceptable and not acceptable. And if college is really about their learning, then they should have a stake in the game of how are they learning and really impact it themselves. So these were some of their responses. I asked them in each question, they got a link to all of the different types of AI that is available that I knew about, I should say, at the time. So they had to go and look at it and see which are each of these and what are the benefits and drawbacks of each one. And notice how 80% of them thought that using Grammarly was perfectly okay using their assignments, even though Grammarly can completely change the tone of writing so it sounds more academic. In some cases, as we know, it doesn't even resemble the original submission. So we allow students to turn in assignments that is corrected by Grammarly, but why won't we allow them to use other types of AI as a tool to help them work smarter, not harder? This question was followed up by asking why they chose what they did. I briefly went over Goblin tools with you all. So this was the question that I had for them to look at in terms of outlining what Goblin tools was, because most people don't know what it is. So if you use the online version, it's completely free. If you use the app, it's $1.99. The only reason I think to purchase the app, honestly, is to use the chef tool, which is one of the most amazing things. One of my students said that was her favorite part of it. She didn't know what to make for dinner. She popped in what were the ingredients in her fridge and it came out with this amazing recipe for dinner. Like, awesome. They looked at this, and one of the things that I really love about the Goblin tool, aside from the formalizer where you can change your own tone, but you can you can use what you're writing and pop it in for the judge to see how other people, or rather how AI will interpret the tone of your writing. Since so much is lost in writing in terms of tone, it's really, really great. I have students who just have all of these thoughts in their head and they don't know how to sort everything out. So I tell them to use the compiler where it's a mind dump and it will help organize the thoughts for them. This is a great way to just streamline your thinking process. And this was their vote. A lot of them felt that using the professor was acceptable because it was like their own personal tutor. They did not feel like they pretty much thought all of these was acceptable for use in the classroom. And again, I asked them, why did they pick the ones that they did? If you don't know about Elicit, Elicit is a really great way to pop in your research question and it searches thousands of databases for journal articles, and it will give you the journal articles that are specific to your research question. It's much better than using databases where you have to come up with the correct keyword prompts. That was one thing I hated about doing research was I could never find the right prompts. And here it's just you pop in your research question and everything will come up. So I made my students use it for their research project. And they found that using Elicit to write your lit review was unethical in terms of just looking at the abstract summary and then copy pasting the summaries. They found that using it, though, was fine. And then the last part, so this was the actual Pirates code that we came up with. Some of it I added to my original policy. So the students decided that these were the acceptable ways of using AI in our class. The first three are from my original policy. So it's to generate research articles for your research proposal, fine-tuning your research question, summarizing your notes, and creating study aids and a to-do list. Some of those they came up with on their own. And then the unacceptable ones were using the professor or judge in Goblin tools during any exam to complete an assignment, using AI to change the voice of the writer when it eliminates your original thoughts and efforts and using AI to write your discussions. And then they decided what would be the penalty for violating the code. There's so much evidence now that shows that even though Turnitin has an AI detector, and you can copy paste something that a student wrote into another AI detector, and it will tell you, oh, this is 98% AI written or 40% AI written. I've tested some of those things with things that I've written on my own, and it was flagged as 90% AI detected, and something that I had AI write, and it was not flagged at all. So we really cannot rely on those accurately to catch our students using AI and cheating. A better way to do it, and this is from my students' perspective, is if you suspect that AI has been used unethically, have a conversation with the student. So give them a 0 on the assignment as a reminder that we now need to have a conversation. And in that first meeting, ask them, what was your process for writing the assignment? If the student has used AI, they'll fess up. If they haven't, they'll walk you through it. If they did it in a Google document, ask them to pull up the Google document and have them show you the version history. The version history will show down to the detail how they created the assignment. So if they copy pasted, it'll be something blank to all of a sudden something popped up. Whereas if they did multiple drafts, you'll see all of those edits. So the first offense, a conversation, and then grade it like you normally would have. Their second offense, again, based off of my students, is that you still have the conversation, but they still they keep the 0. That's the penalty. And then the third offense is you get the 0, we have a conversation, and you get reported to the dean of students. I found that their penalty was a lot leaner than mine. It allowed for more conversations and an opportunity for just a back and forth, creating that safe space, because sometimes students don't realize that what they're doing is plagiarizing. Some of the students did say that the penalty should be getting kicked out of the class and even being kicked out of the school. I'm like, that's a little harsh for a first offense. This is how you use elicit. Oopsies, pause. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, so let me reshare. This was a
Yeah, I think you have to reshare
yeah,
with
share
the
sound.
sound
Okay,
bar.
I
The
didn't realize it
sound
was going to
part
play
clip.
automatically. This was the short tutorial that I provided for my students on how to use elicit. Journal article. This is your tutorial on how we're going to use AI to help us with the research process. There are types of AI that I think are really great for grabbing research, journal articles, things like that. The first one is elicit. You're going to go to this website, elicit.com, and then click on it. Now I've already signed up. Let's see if I remember which username and password I did. Once you sign in or create your account, what you want to do is go with the basic. You don't need anything more than that. At the time of this recording, it did have this whole 5,000 credits nonsense. They have since removed that, just so you know. Pick the wrong account. Skip. Now, I'm going to put in a research question. And my research question is, well, let's just use one of the ones that they're offering. Does wearing an activity tracker improve health outcomes? Let's try that one. Once you put in your research question, what you're going to notice here is it's looking through thousands of research articles. And in this top part here, the summary of the top 4 papers, this is like a miniature lit review in a sense. Now you cannot use AI to conduct your or to write your lit review for you. It will not do it properly. It will do it horribly, horribly wrong. Do not do that. If you do that, you're cheating. What you're going to be doing is part of the lit review is you're going to enter your research question up at the top. Then you're going to hit search, and you will notice here how it has lots. I mean, you just keep loading more and more and more articles, and it will just keep giving you more and more articles. So you didn't have to do all that research on your own. Now, the ways that you're going to use this is a couple of ways. Take this first one. Activity trackers, even with cash incentive, do not improve health. What you'll notice here is that it has a DOI. Now, a DOI is called the document identifier. When you see a DOI, that means that the article is likely going to be published in a peer-reviewed article or a scholarly article. That's a good thing. The second thing you want to notice is, or pay attention to, is the year of publication and the number of citations. So for the purposes of this assignment, you can only use articles that are published within the last 5 years. And the more citations it has, the stronger the article is. You can add columns. So over on the on the right-hand side, so it gives you automatically the abstract summary. You can also go ahead and ask it to add the methodology. And let's say you also want to look at the outcomes measured and the limitations. Okay? So it's going through the article for you and providing you with all of this detail. Then what you want to do is click on filters. We want to change the publication year to 2019. And what this means, the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, that has to do with how hard, or the impact score of the journal, how hard is it to get published. Don't even need to worry about that. That's a good amount. So if we just limit it down to those 5 years, and let's do has a PDF. Make it easy for you to download this article. So now we've taken it from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles to a bit smaller in terms of the number of articles that we're going to be reviewing. Your job is to go through the abstracts and find the articles that fit your research question. You want to look for 10 articles so that you can write 3 themes or write on 3 themes. When you submit this assignment for your lit review, you need to include a screenshot of what is it that you captured here. The easiest way to do it is Control P. So you want to change it to, you're basically telling it that you want to print the information, and headers and footers is the other part that you want, because it'll provide you with, or provide me with, the date that you did this, as well as the research question. Then you'll hit save. Now, when you hit save, you're going to save it wherever you save things, and name it as, just leave it as it is, and that's fine. Whatever the name is, it's fine. That's how you use elicit. So they changed the format a little bit after the recording, so doing the printing, or at least the saving portion of it, is a little more difficult. Steve, in response to your question, I did talk to them about getting the different types of jobs that they can get. I focused mostly on the types of research jobs that they can get, particularly through the government. So CalConnect has a lot of really strong research jobs that pay a really nice sum of money. They look more so for quantitative researchers. And I mentioned, how do we use AI to getting jobs? After this part, so my students have to do 2 parts with using AI. The first part is the first part really was actually refining the research question. I have this backwards. Once they wrote the research question, I made them use ChatGPT to refine their research question. And then here's their tutorial on how to do using ChatGPT to refine your research question. The last part that we're going to do is look at ChatGPT. So let's say you're trying out writing your research question and you're not quite sure what it is, or you need a little help refining it. So we know that we're asking, does wearing an activity tracker improve health outcomes? Let's see what else, how can we refine that question? So we'll put in here, refine my research question of, see, what does it say? So you see everything that it's coming up with here? So this is all the ways that you can make your research question into a good research question, or an even better or a stronger one. So it went from how, I already forgot the question, haha. Does wearing an activity tracker improve health outcomes? That's an okay research question, but it's still missing a lot of parameters. It's still too broad. What kind of health outcomes are we looking for? Are we looking at a particular age group? Are we looking at men versus women? And so once we add that original research question and we look at the refined ones, so these are the refined ones. I like, what are the effects of using an activity tracker on physical fitness, weight management, and cardiovascular health in individuals aged 40 to 60? That's a great research question because it's specific and it's broad at the same time. So it gives you really great parameters. I want you to use ChatGPT to refine your research question. Again, you will need to give me the screenshot of this so I can see your full conversation. Well, you'll copy it. So at the very bottom here, this little copy button, click on the copy button and then paste it into a Word document. And then that's what you're going to be saving and submitting as your evidence of, so I can see how are you using AI. They really liked using and they appreciated this type of instruction. They had written their research question. They just needed help fixing it. And that's what we want to teach our students how to do, is how do we use it to help strengthen what you already know? Overall, my students really appreciated having a voice and a say in creating the class policy and using AI. The more we integrate using AI in our classes, the more comfortable students become and better prepared they are for the workforce. This is especially important for underprivileged students who do not have the years of experience or the resources using AI at home or while in high school. What we're seeing more and more of is that privileged students and privileged white students are getting into schools, or they have a higher advantage of using AI because they have the tools at home. They might have an Echo Dot or Siri at home, so they know the right words to use to prompt it to get what they want. It's something as small and as simple as that, but that can make a huge impact in terms of where are they when they're coming in and how far ahead they are compared to somebody who doesn't have that at home. A lot of AI things right now, they're free, but they're starting to get hidden behind paywalls. So again, privileged students who can afford to pay for those resources will have the experience on how to use them. Whereas the students who are stuck behind a paywall, hold on just one moment. I'm sorry, this is my alarm company calling for my house. Hello?
Hopefully everything's all right with Karen. I for one am like pretty curious because I haven't heard some of these tools before. So Goblin Tools and Illicit, and the way that she has projected Illicit and its incorporation into her class has made me strongly consider how I can possibly incorporate it. I do have some questions pertaining to how to do so in an ethical manner. Um, but hopefully she's able
Yeah,
to.
these are definitely very interesting. And you know, I'm actually shocked she didn't have AI answer her phone call there. But uh, one that is uh, interesting, I did like how she had that start of these different policies at institutions, um, which is interesting because it's often these institutions that are driving the research into AI and building systems. So we saw the one with Pepperdine, and I'm sharing one in the chat. If folks haven't seen the Stanford Storm, which can help write academic papers, which are man, it's interesting. If you haven't played around with that one, um, it's
Now,
it's
what,
it's it's interesting to check it out.
yeah, so one of the things I'm also curious about, this is Dwayne, is really why we haven't got Alyssa.com in our list of databases at least at my school. Is it at other people's school? In other words, when you go to look for an article, you go to Sociophile, you go to EBSCOhost, you go to whatever one, history, disc, all those ones. But I've never seen Illicit file on there. Illicit.com. Has anyone else seen that? Because this is very helpful.
I learned about it from my professor when she and I were talking about research, and she goes, "Oh my God, you have to try this." And I was like, "Okay." And I
Wow.
tried it, and it like blew my mind. And she
Right.
says for her academic writing, she prefers to use Claude, Claude, instead of ChatGPT because it writes things differently and better. So there's multiple different ways or different AI tools that we can use that kind of do the same thing, but do it in a different, better way.
Mm.
Thank you for I apologize again for the break. There were apparently a spider web set off the smoke detector, and the alarm company wanted to make sure my house wasn't on fire. So um, one of the most important things that we have to do with any kind of AI is looking at the ethical components, and specifically to the racial biases and the stereotypes that are fed into these AI algorithms.
The last part that we're going to do
Oopsies,
is look at
sorry,
ChatGPT.
wrong one. This past summer in my class, Introduction to AI, like I said, I was blown away by all of the tools that we could use and were expected to use so that we can learn how to use everything. And when we had to generate AI images, there were a lot of things that stuck out at me. And when we were reviewing each other's presentations and our reflections, one of my classmates, her analysis of the 4 main types of AI generation just really blew my mind. And I asked her for permission to use her presentation for this as well as for in my class. And she said, yes, please, absolutely. Now, to give you a little bit of background, what she was looking for is she's an African-American woman who is trying to create an AI generated image for her business. This was her prompt. It says, create an image of an African-American girl, age 5, with a white dress sitting on a brown chair on a porch of a house in California. And she analyzed how Microsoft Designer, Gemini, and Firefly would generate these images based off of a single prompt. This is what Gemini, this was one of them. So you can see it's, in my opinion, pretty stereotypical. This is what Gemini came up with. And this is what Firefly came up with. What's missing with Gemini? That's this one.
The girl.
The girl. Yeah. And it wasn't just in this instance, but every single time she changed the prompt for something to be developed with an African American person, the error notice that kept coming up was, we're sorry, we can't do that right now. And the other thing that she also noticed was this lack of representation. In my opinion, coming from as a white person, when I look at these images, it looks to me like they're pretty much the exact same person. There's really no difference in them. This is probably the only one that has a difference in shade. We know that Black people come in different shades. We know white people come in different shades. Everybody comes in different shades. But what's happening here is that AI is saying, well, this is the one way that we see this racial category, and this is the only way that we are going to present it. It is missing a lack of representation in skin tone, body type, hair type, and this is just to name a few. The gentleman, at least both of the gentlemen's, there's only, again, one type of man that's being presented. So we have to make our students take an analytical look about the images that are being generated in AI. And this is not just limited to our sociology students. You might have a student that is interested in art and design or interior design or any kind of design, marketing, and they might be using AI to generate images for those flyers or for their marketing materials. So my students have to do, this is their assignment specifically in, it was in my methods class. It's also in my intro class. I use it for gender. I use it for all sorts of things. I just change the prompt. They have to use an AI to generate an image. And in this case, I had my students just generate an image about a person, and I wanted them to focus specifically on something that they know or have heard a stereotype about. And then I want them to copy paste the image and then tear it apart. Because the more we can tear it apart, the more we can start seeing when we are being presented with AI generated images or videos, and we think that they're real when they're not. Like I saw a video this morning of a giraffe calf riding on the back of a giraffe. Now, I have never seen that. You will never see that in real life, but it was so realistic until somebody pointed out that when the calf moved its head, it went straight through the body of the adult. I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that. So how are we not seeing AI generated images and content and thinking that it's real? So the prompt for this, I told my students that they had to analyze the image generated and how it reinforces racial and gender biases and gender roles in society. They had to discuss the detrimental effects of generated AI and how it perpetuates stereotypes, which in turn keeps society from progressing and becoming inclusive. We also discussed the impact generative AI has on marginalized communities, underrepresented populations, and how it impacts potential government funding or social awareness of social problems that arise from something as simple as an image. This was something I created through being an image creator, and the prompt was to generate an image of a French woman, because I'm French and I wanted to see what it would come up with. And this is what it came up with. And there were some glaringly obvious issues. Like, for example, while she does have 5 fingers, these are not the appropriate 5 fingers. She's missing a pinky finger. Most women do not have collarbones that stick out this way. So this emphasizes thinness as the beauty standard or the beauty norm. Not all French women wear berets and the mime outfit and walk around with a baguette and drink wine. She has a tilt of her head, which is a cant. And if you know anything about Goffman's images, the cant or the canted head symbolizes submission. It's not a power pose. So how can we take something as similar or as small as this and break it down to talk about the stereotypes? How does it reinforce gender roles or racial roles that our society is building on a day-to-day basis? What are the underlying or latent messages? And how can we combat it? My hope is that by this point you have or you are curious about how you can develop and modify your own AI policies. So one that it might be a little bit more inclusive and less punitive as the way that universities and our campuses really want us to be. That you're starting to generate ideas on how you can integrate AI in your own classes, and that it sparks how do we discuss more about the racial stereotypes and biases that are ingrained in AI on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much, Karen. Sorry, I just took a cough drop, so I'm trying to maneuver that. Your presentation was very informative. It gave me a lot to think about, and I'm sure many of our attendees are also quite, moved with the amount of information that was being provided.
If you have access to Cal State, where is it? So there is a AI certificate that is being done through sent items. Hold on a second. I sent it to my boss. I will find it. It's through the CSU and it's hosted through San Diego State. There it is. It's an AI micro course. And the micro course will help also, or it talks a lot about some of the stuff that I mentioned. My professor, Dr. Otero, who is an instructional designer at Cal State Monterey Bay, she wrote the course and the CSU asked for it, and then they made some modifications to it. So if you can take the course, I would strongly recommend it. It provides so much information, almost too much information. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to complete it. And it's really, really useful in generating just a lot of different ideas, again, on how we can use this as a tool to support our students to enhancing their own intellectual capacities, their own creativity.
So Karen, I have a comment. I think this was an excellent presentation. And I also appreciate all the tips you've given me because I wrote down a whole bunch of notes here. One of the things I'm going to ask you about is from the professor's standpoint then. I grade a lot of papers. So over the years, what I've done is develop comments for the papers in general. I actually give first-year students a research paper to do. And people think I'm insane, but it works out really well because they have to go out and do actual data collection at a football game or go to the gym or magazine content analysis, various topics. But I make them submit two versions, the draft version, which comes in like early March, early October, and then the final version, which comes in November. And I require them to hand them both in when they finally have it graded. That's my way of the past of getting around some of the potential plagiarism and potential, using AI and so forth. Yes, I have seen AI show up in those situations recently, but that's fine. I actually talk to them and so forth. But I find that if you force them to go through a process before they get to a final outcome, that actually reduces the amount of time they're actually spending trying to get someone else to do it for them. And then what I really like about your presentation is that I'm going to add into the process in terms of the brainstorming aspect of the paper. Hey, use AI to brainstorm the ideas that you want to do for your paper itself. So that's a great addition. I think I can actually use. What I was also concerned about too is the fact that our universities are not jumping on this in a way to make it, like for example, that website you gave us, which is illicit.com. To me, we should be buying a site license for that, not having people pay individually or going for the basic. Go for the bigger site license, and that way everyone gets access to it. And then finally, the other thing that I would also like to use some AI in some of my discussion board posts. Once again, I'm one of the few people who actually does discussion board posts with 70 plus people, and I try and read them. Again, it's been tedious for years and years and years, but I think it's really important for them to actually come up with original ideas and thoughts and so forth. So it works, but is there something you can recommend for people like me who want to respond to discussion board posts, but are losing their energy to actually be reading this stuff over and over again?
Yeah, so I went recently, if you haven't heard about the online teaching conference, I would strongly recommend looking it up.
I've heard
They
about it.
have, okay, so they have this past summer or this June's conference is posted online, and they have the recorded sessions are there too. And there was one that I attended that was phenomenal. There were several that AI was like the hot topic. So there were a lot of presentations done on AI, and thankfully they were recorded. So I strongly recommend that you go check them out. There were a couple that were really great. One was all about how to use AI as professors to help us work smarter, not harder, right? Instead, I'm never going to create a rubric on my own again. I'm always going to go through AI because it is so much faster and it kind of breaks it down a lot easier in manageable pieces for my students. I scaffold my research for my research methods class. Since it's a community college, I don't have them write the full research project. They do a proposal, which in my mind is harder to do because you have to do the full scope of it. And I scaffold it throughout the entire semester, which also eliminates some of those issues. For discussions, I don't know if your campus uses Harmonize. Have you used Harmonize
I've
yet?
never heard of it. Maybe they do. It's maybe embedded in Canvas somewhere. I'm not sure.
So using Harmonize in Canvas, and it's campus specific. So I teach at LA Community College in that district, and we use Harmonize, and it's a different way to use discussions. So instead of our traditional where it's just one person and then their replies underneath, they're
Yes.
given little ID cards instead, and just changing the way that we do discussions so that they're not boring for us to read.
Yes.
Because I'm with you too. I'm teaching human sexuality in 2 weeks, and I'm writing up my discussions going, okay, I'm going to have to read this 40 times. What do I want to read, really? So I found that giving them a couple of options
Mhm.
is really great, especially in some of those hot topic classes. So if you teach crime and delinquency or race and ethnicity or human sexuality or gender or any of those, it's great to give them a couple of options. So they pick, it's like their own pick your own adventure. And then that
Mhm.
way you're not reading the exact same response 40 times. You might
Yes.
read the same one 10 times.
Right.
And it gives them the freedom to, and I also do this with the assigned reading. So I might have 6 or 7 articles for them to read, but based on the discussion, they get to choose which article they want to read because that's the one that stuck out to them. The rest of it was boring.
Mhm.
So providing more options is
Mhm.
what I would recommend.
Okay. Thanks for the advice. Mhm.
You're
Great
welcome.
advice.
And thank you for posting those links for me. I appreciate it. Other questions?
Karen, I have, I guess, a question, but it starts off as a comment. I really like Elicit because personally, my campus's library search tool is, I don't like it, and I can imagine as a student who has no idea how to navigate it, it's even more difficult to locate articles that could be helpful in the process. So I appreciate, and I'm going to explore the Elicit tool. There's so many tools out there. It could be overwhelming. The question that popped up in my head is you have the pirate code, and I love that you collaborate with your students to construct what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. And I know you've only done it that summer for your social research class, but what would be your steps should a student or should a group of students agree on an unacceptable way of using it? Like they agree, no, that is completely acceptable from our group perspective. How would you have a conversation pertaining that?
If it was in a live class, an in-person class, then I would want to know more about why did they feel that was what is it about that makes it acceptable for them, and really finding out. And actually, I would do the same thing if it was an online class. So and what I found though was a majority of the students were pretty on board or on point with what I was interpreting as unacceptable. None of them thought it was, very few of them thought it was acceptable to use AI to generate um, and to ghostwrite their own assignments. We know that they do it, right? And at this stage, I'm not really interested in policing that anymore because it's their time, their education, and their money. If they want to cheat themselves through their education, it's going to come back on them eventually when they're out in the real world. I don't have the energy to look things up. So unless it's blatant plagiarism or blatant use of AI, I honestly let it slide. Because there's so many more things that I need. I would rather use my energy to help my students, in their editing and how to refine their writing than to come back and say, you used AI and you were bad. I'm not their parent. They're adults. They know the penalty. So that's how I'm approaching it, honestly.
I have a question. And Karen, thank you for the presentation. Unfortunately, I had to jump in late, so you may have addressed some of this early. Um, I'm thinking kind of big picture, maybe I'm channeling the naysayers, and I'm certainly not one of them. I'm actually excited about trying to incorporate more so that our students, again, as you said, have tools necessary to frankly develop their own skill set. So I guess I have two questions or comments around that. What have you observed with regards to maybe some of the more traditional or conventional faculty who struggle with this? And I'm going to include writing tutors in particular. So we have a writing center, and we're about to hire a new leader for that area. And it's really interesting because the search was predicated on someone who had a strong philosophy about AI and was going to address this with our students because they were framing it as deeply problematic, even though we have no patterns to suggest that it is yet, right? But just anticipating all of the cheating, right? And I was really troubled by that because there are, writing professors, people who are experts in their field, who aren't as worried about AI as they are like what would compel students to use it in the first place. Like, how can we support them feeling confident in their writing, and can think about AI as maybe a supplemental, but don't feel compelled to use it because they've developed skill sets to write and don't see it as like this torturous, horrific thing, that's part of that sort of college experience and learning. Anyway, so I'm wondering like what those conversations have been like. And then my second question is, and I don't know if I guess I wonder. So as I think about incorporating these maybe parallel or adjacent skill sets in terms of the use of AI, do you find that the learning outcomes then change slightly, right? Where I might say, initially, historically or conventionally, I may say something around developing critical thinking skills to develop a research question that reflects inductive reasoning or something like that, right? But then with AI, it kind of does it for you, or at least kicks you off and starts you off on, right? Like kind of like gets you to I guess you started it, in my opinion, it seems like you started a different step, right? And so does that influence then how we write the learning outcome, right? Or is it still the same?
The first part of your question, I thankfully have not had experiences or conversations with, because my department is pretty progressive. And my campus is pretty progressive. But for the folks who are very against it, there are issues with AI. It does take away from the ability to do critical thinking, right? It is so much easier to say, this is the question, pop it in, what's the answer? Oh, good, I don't have to think anymore. What we know with AI is the same thing that we know with plagiarism. Students do it because, like you mentioned, they don't feel confident, or they're afraid that, the professor's expectations are higher than their abilities. So just reminding them. And that's what I tell them when I've gotten a paper from a student and the vernacular is completely different. I ask them about it. I'll ask them to define that particular word, and they can't. I go, then why did you use that word? Oh, well, I wanted to sound smarter. And I remind them, you don't need to sound smarter. You are already smart enough. And giving them that permission to even use the 1-syllable word instead of the 4-syllable word means that they are just as smart, sometimes alleviates some of that stuff. I forgot the second question.
So the second question is around learning outcomes.
Yes, learning outcomes.
Yeah.
So with learning outcomes, I think that it will change, but not to the degree that we think about. So with my having the students using ChatGPT, they still had to come up with their own research question. They're just using ChatGPT to refine it, to shift it a little bit, to tweak it. How is that any different than them giving it to me and us brainstorming, or them going to the tutor and brainstorming with the tutor? They still have to use their critical thinking skills. So if we shift it minorly, the initial outcome is still the same. We still want them to develop those skills. They're just using a different tool to do it and to get there.
Yeah. I know we're at time. I see that Steve's posted some questions too. I'd like to just make one more comment, especially because the premise of BIPOC Connex in particular is using a racial equity lens, right? And I don't know if this was said earlier, but I feel like it's important to state that I love I don't want to say spin, but your approach to, right, integrating, incorporating. And when you mentioned the potential racial bias and what AI generates, there's another element that concerns me. And this really is about more professional development for faculty in assuming that through racial bias, that some of our students are using AI, even if they're not, right? So we know that there's a tradition, I'll call it a tradition, a pattern of, right, bias against students of color, somehow simply not being able to articulate in any sort of, intelligent way or so forth. That's very problematic. And we just have patterns, where students have been approached by faculty who just don't think they wrote it. And so I do question if AI amps that up a little bit, because there seems to be I don't want to say unfounded fear, but there's just so much energy from faculty that I'm hearing around concerns about this new level of plagiarism. So I worry about that a little bit in terms of our students getting targeted. Nonetheless, I feel like these assignments help us to avoid that, and that if it's built in, right, we don't have to worry about catching students like that. And I'm with you. I'm not interested in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So just comment.
Any other questions? I know we're at time. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to chatter about this whenever. Steve, you're very welcome for the presentation. I don't know if the question is about the PSA is directed to me or not. I have no idea.
Yeah, you can answer the second one. I can answer the first one, in that we do have both digital sociology as content areas of the conference for PSA 2025, as well as areas of teaching sociology. So the question isn't are we necessarily trying to dive at it head on? It's more if there are some folks who are proposing sessions for the conference, we're definitely encouraging folks to do that. So we've encouraged people to bring those type of sessions to the conference, and we're even, and I know Dwayne had to step out, but we're even inviting publishers and things like that to come to the conference as well, and talk about those from a book a publisher perspective, as well as from a teaching perspective. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is register for the conference and come hang out. And then, Karen, I think the second part is more for you on that one. Are those creating research in the sociology text dealing with effective use of AI?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I am active with the Journal of Positive Sexuality. I was their production editor for 8 years. And what we are finding is that people are submitting AI created articles for their publications. So it's problematic at all levels, right? Even professors are doing it because they need that research for tenure and they haven't done it. So they're like, oh, I've got this thought, I'll just pop it in and see what happens. It's kind of everywhere. And I think we're behind the times in trying to adapt to it in a way that's going to be supportive and positive.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen. This was really great. Thank you.
I
You're
do get a
welcome.
kick out of folks who might, hold their nose up, in particular at folks of color who are, maybe using AI to help generate ideas when, professors have been utilizing their own AI in the by way of grad students for a lot of years. So to think out, how dare you edit that in what was that, illicit that you had, or it was a
Illicit. Yeah.
Yeah. How dare you use that for editing your language? Now, granted, I use the grad students to do my my APA 7 editing, but you can't use AI. So
Yep.
thank you for this. We really appreciate it. If you would like to share your slides with us, we would definitely take those and send them out to the group. And
Sure.
we appreciate your time. For all those who are in BIPOC Connex directly, we have our Wednesday talk next week a week from tomorrow, where we will go over this and talk about all the things Karen brought up in the presentation, as well as share resources, links, and things like that. So we could take a moment to digest this. Tanya and Patricia, any last words you want to share?
No, just really appreciative, Karen. And then you're more than welcome to attend, Karen, if you want. I know you're taking your lunch break right now, so no pressure.
We'll slide you on the invite. So
Yeah. Thank
that
you
would
so
be
much.
great.
It was great.
And one thing, if you could share it with Dwayne, I was talking to my professor yesterday about my discussions in my class coming up, and I was like, how do I reword this so it's not so intimidating? And he goes, why don't you do a TLDR summary and pop in your discussion as it's written, pop it into AI, have it summarize it into 2 or 3 sentences. So the students kind of like go, oh, this is what I really have to focus on. And then have the full instructions below as these are the full discussion instructions, or these are the full assignment instructions. And I'm like, that's brilliant. I'm going to do that. And as long as we also are transparent on our end of explaining when we use AI, then it's not such a scary thing because we do it too. So when I rewrite my assignments and my discussions for my online class, and I have a TLDR, which is too long, didn't read, I had to look it up because I had no idea what the acronym meant, summary, I will say this summary was generated by AI. So they know I'm using it also. And it makes it less scary and less forbidden. And they see where I'm using it as a tool, they can use it as a tool. So that was the last kind of piece I wanted to share. And Patty, I sent you my slides.
Great. I'll be
Okay.
sure to share it with
All
everyone.
right.
Sorry,
Thank you so
I had to
much.
laugh at that because I had to look that up too while you
Right?
were saying that. I was
Like,
like,
I
I
don't know what
kind of
this
know what it
means.
is, but let me look it up and make sure because I'm just now getting caught up on the ASMR stuff, and I'm like, all these different letters are killing me. I don't know what. There's a funny comedian that just put out a whole thing about all these acronyms that I have no idea what half of them are, but I have to pretend
Yep.
like I know. So I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna use my AI to do that. Thank you all very much. Make sure you are registering for our upcoming events. We have a um, next month. We will put out information about our next Tuesday talk. Um, we're still working on some things about that, I believe. We do have lightning talk series. So there is one coming up on November 1st. I just sent out an email, so you should have some things in your deal with that. October 15th, 1 week from today, is the deadline for submissions for PSA 2025. Do not let the deadline slip you by. If you're interested in AI, propose a session here. Not saying that Karen is coming to PSA 2025, but if Karen wanted to propose a session on AI at PSA 2025, I'm pretty sure that would be supported by a lot of folks. So, no pressure, a little poke here and there, but please feel free. Our call for submission portal is open. Visit our website for that, as well as registration for the conference is open as well. So go on ahead and register for the conference while you're having your lunch today. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the day, and hopefully see as many of you as possible can attend next Wednesday for our Wednesday wrap up, where we further continue this discussion on the use of AI in the classroom. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.